They tried to bury Bathsheba, but she was a seed. Part 1 exposed the crime. Assaulted, blamed for 3,000 years, husband murdered, baby gone. Basically, the worst season finale ever. But she didn't just survive, she leveled up. The powerless girl became the CEO of the throne room. Enemies bowed, kings needed her advice, and she turned drama into a dynasty like it was her side hustle. This isn't survival, it's a royal glow-up with a bang. Part 1 was the wound. Part 2, the empire she built from the mess. The real question isn't how she lived, it's how she won. Bathsheba's grief was a language David would never understand. The Bible actually says, she mourned for her husband, not mourned for the situation, not was sad about the complications. She mourned for Uriah, the man she loved, the man who refused to sleep in comfort while his brothers were at war, the man too honorable to see the knife coming. Her tears weren't for show, they were a funeral for her entire life. Think about it. Uriah was that guy. The one who turned down a night with his own wife because his fellow soldiers were still in tents. The one who got drunk and still refused to compromise his principles. The one who carried his own death sentence back to the battlefield without knowing it. Bathsheba didn't just lose a husband. She lost the one man in this story who actually had integrity. The one person who would have protected her. The one person who never used her. And then, when her mourning was over, David sent for her like she was a package being delivered, like her grief had an expiration date. David gave her just enough time to cry before making her his wife. Imagine that. You're drowning in grief for a husband you loved, a husband who was murdered by the man who assaulted you, and before the tears are even dry, that same man shows up at your door with a marriage proposal you can't refuse. That's not romance. That's a hostage situation with a wedding dress. Bathsheba's mourning wasn't just sadness. It was the last moment she got to be Uriah's wife instead of David's property. It was the last time her identity belonged to a man who cherished her instead of one who consumed her. Her grief was the period at the end of one life and the comma before a nightmare. And we need to stop skipping over that verse like it doesn't matter. Bathsheba mourned. She grieved deeply. She loved the man who died for David's lies. That one line proves she wasn't a seductress. She wasn't complicit. She was a widow who didn't get to choose what came next. David took her body, murdered her husband, and then showed up like a consolation prize. The silence that screams. You know what gets me? Throughout this entire ordeal, the assault, the pregnancy, her husband's murder, Bathsheba doesn't speak a single word. At least none that are recorded. Not one word when David sent for her, not one word when David used her, not one word when she learns her husband is dead. The text is completely silent about her thoughts, her feelings, her voice. Is that because she had no power to speak? Or is it because the male writers of this text didn't think her voice mattered? I think it's both. And that silence is deafening. But here's what's fascinating. Later, when King David is old and dying, guess who does speak? Guess who becomes politically savvy and vocal? Bathsheba. She shows up. She advocates for her son Solomon. She secures the throne. She uses her position. She finds her voice. So the question is, how did a silent victim become a power player? Skip the ordinary and dive into the secret chef's tasting menu of stories. We're your guide to uncovering hidden gems and surprising twists, making you the main character with jaw-dropping facts. Unlock the knowledge you crave. This next part changed everything for me. The baby who paid the price. Now we get to maybe the most disturbing part of this whole story. Nathan tells David, the son born to you will die. And the baby does die. 7 days of illness and then death. This is described as God's punishment for David's sin. Here's something to digest. Who actually paid the price? David sins. David gets the woman pregnant and murders her husband. And the baby dies? Bathsheba carried that child for 9 months. She gave birth, in ancient times, one of the most dangerous things a woman could do. And then she watched her baby suffer for a week and die. David mourned and prayed before the baby died. But once the baby was gone, David got up, washed, changed his clothes, worshipped, and ate. He moved on. But what about Bathsheba? Where's her grief in the text? We don't hear about it. She's invisible again. The baby died because of David's sin, but Bathsheba carried the body, gave birth to the child, lost her firstborn son. I don't have a good answer for that. It's an uncomfortable question that the text leaves hanging. And then David marries Bathsheba. Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went to her and made love to her. His wife. It's the first time the text calls her his wife, after everything. But here's the question nobody asks. Did she have a choice? Could she say no to marrying the king? What would happen if she refused? Could she go back to her father's house? Would she be safe? Will her family be safe? Or was this marriage her only option for survival? Some people call this Stockholm Syndrome, when a victim bonds with their abuser. Others call it trauma bonding. Maybe it was just pure survival instinct, or maybe, just maybe, she made a calculated decision. Maybe this is my fate. If I'm trapped in this situation, I'm going to make the most of it. I will ride with it, and maybe one day I'm going to have power. She didn't choose this marriage, but she was going to decide what she could do with it. Here's the family drama nobody talks about. Bathsheba's grandfather Ahithophel joined a rebellion to destroy David. He wanted blood. He wanted revenge. And honestly, he had every reason to. But Bathsheba's father, Eliam, made a different choice. Even when his own father turned traitor, even when David had destroyed his daughter's life, Eliam stayed loyal. He remained one of David's elite 30 mighty men. Grandfather chose rage. Father chose duty. And Bathsheba? She was caught in the middle of a family civil war. Ahithophel's advice was so trusted that it was like Google, but for God-level answers. But Bathsheba didn't follow the grandfather who wanted vengeance. She followed the father who chose something harder, controlled fire over wildfire. This wasn't about being weak or forgiving too easily. Bathsheba had every right to become the villain in this story. She could have poisoned David's wine. She could have whispered rebellion in the halls. She could have watched the kingdom burn and smiled. Instead, she played the long game. She didn't let her trauma turn her into her grandfather, brilliant, broken, and self-destructive. She channeled her father, steady, strategic, and unstoppable. She didn't just survive David's court, she conquered it. She made her son Solomon the king. She became the queen mother with actual political power. Bathsheba turned her grandfather's suicide note into her son's crown. That's not a weakness. That's choosing to become a queen instead of a victim. That's deciding that the best strategy isn't destruction. It's building something they can't take from you. Emotion would have killed her, but patience and reason kept her alive long enough to win. And that, my friends, is how you turn hell into a throne room. Most YouTube channels are like flashy carnival games, enticing but empty. We're the boutique coffee shop of content, offering substance and quality. Choose us for engaging, memorable videos that nourish your mind, unlike the usual brain-draining fare. God gave Bathsheba something David never could. Vindication with a birth certificate. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. After everything, the assault, the murder, the dead baby, the forced marriage, the whispers, the shame, Bathsheba gives birth to another son. They named him Solomon. But God had other plans. God sent the prophet Nathan with a second name, Jedidiah, beloved of the Lord. Let that sink in. The same prophet who confronted David with a story about a stolen lamb now shows up at Bathsheba's door with a message directly from God. This child is mine. This child is loved. This child has my blessing. This was God's official stamp of approval on Bathsheba and her son. Think about what this means. David repented, sure, but Bathsheba got the divine endorsement. The court could whisper all they wanted. God himself called her son beloved. That's God saying, try shaming someone I've already crowned. God turned Bathsheba's trauma into a throne and handed her the receipt. Bathsheba wore labels like David's victim and Uriah's widow like cruel name tags. But when God named Solomon Jedidiah, he rewrote her story. She wasn't the scandal anymore. She was the mother of God's beloved. She was the queen mother of Israel's golden age. God gave her what the court never would, legitimacy that couldn't be questioned. This is why Bathsheba could stand in that palace with her head high. Not because she was arrogant, not because she forgot what happened, but because God himself said her son was beloved, because divine favor trumps human judgment every single time. Bathsheba's survival got her a kingdom and God's personal blessing on her child. She didn't just overcome her past, God made sure her future had his signature on it. That's not just redemption. That's God looking at a woman everyone else wrote off and saying, actually, I'm putting her son on the throne, and I'm naming him myself. Deal with it. Bathsheba walked into that court not as a sinner, but as the woman whose son God personally nicknamed. Try shaming someone when God's already claimed them. In ancient Israel, there was this position called the Gebira, the Queen Mother, and it wasn't just a ceremonial title. The Queen Mother wielded significant political influence. She advised the king. She had authority in court. She was a force. Bathsheba became one of the most powerful women in Israel's history. When David is old and dying, there's a succession crisis. Who's going to be the next king? Adonijah, one of David's older sons, starts declaring himself king. He's got support from important people. It looks like Solomon, Bathsheba's son, is going to be passed over. And that's when Bathsheba makes her move. Bathsheba goes to David and says, "My lord, you swore Solomon would be king, but Adonijah just crowned himself and you didn't even notice." Was there really such an oath? We don't know. The text never mentions it before this moment. But Bathsheba claims it, and Nathan the prophet backs her up, and David, in his old age, makes it official. Solomon will be king. Think about that. Solomon wasn't the eldest son. By normal succession rules, he shouldn't have been chosen. But Bathsheba maneuvered. She politicked. She made it happen. Did she use David's guilt? Maybe. He owed her after all. Did she form a political alliance with Nathan? Probably. Nathan shows up right after her to reinforce the message. Either way, she turned her trauma into a throne. She secured power for her son and for herself. The victim became the queen mother. The silent woman became the power broker. How did she do it? We don't know all the details, but we know she did. But we're not done, because here's what happens next. Solomon, the wisest king who ever lived, stands up and bows when his mother enters the room. Then he places a second throne at his right hand, for Bathsheba. In part 3, we're hitting the throne room, the political execution, and how the woman David took for her body became so powerful that he ended up needing her mind to save his kingdom. She walked in as a trophy. She left as the kingmaker. Plus, David's family curse, the apology she never got, and why Matthew still calls her Uriah's wife 1,000 years later. Part 3 is next. Hit that bell. Because the final question isn't, was Bathsheba raped? It's, why did it take us 3,000 years to ask?